I got up at 7 this morning, so I can go to work on this. This morning, before it gets at 11, I would figure out how to
Pretty good, yeah.
this.
Yeah. Both signed in. They're running for the roll call is called.
It's 7 o'clock according to my clock up here, so I'll call this meeting to order. And before we proceed, I want to thank Mike for doing a fine job at the last meeting. He did, and thank you very much, Mike. And it was wonderful. It was my first vacation in 3 years, and I really enjoyed myself. So, all right. Roll call by the clerk. And for information, Supervisor Paulson and Supervisor Morris are excused tonight.
We have 27 present and 3 absent. Correction, 28 present, 2 absent.
Good. We rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Milky, why don't you lead us tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Moment of silence. Contemplate what we're going to do tonight. Thank you, and thank you for all making it through the storm last night. That's the open meetings law.
We are, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Supervisor Backlund. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The agenda is adopted. I'll entertain a approval of. It's Mr. Winnicky. I'm trying to think of who to call him. I used to see it calling on Amy Renard. Mr. Winnicky,
I would
approval of the May 10th meeting minutes.
I would move as presented.
Any corrections, discussion?
I'd like to add one correction. On the top of the last page, there should be a comma between Turville Heights and Callan.
Duly noted. Make that change. Anything else? Otherwise, all in favor? Opposed? Opposed, hearing none. The minutes are adopted. Communications, Treasurer's Monthly Report, and Zoning Committee. And you should have the Treasurer's Report with on your desk. And in the public hearing is this Thursday. This Thursday at 7 o'clock, the zoning public hearing. All right. Public comment. We have 2 for public comment. Actually, 3. So first is Diane Owen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diane Owens, and forgive me if I mess up the terminology a little bit, but I'm here to ask the County Board of Supervisors to approve item 14B, the amendment to the ag tourism definition as it is presented in this document today. Thank you.
That I have online a Michael Van Kuhn.
Yes, you pronounced that correctly. Thank you. Yeah, Attorney Michael Van Clunen. I am located north, actually Parental Sin LLP is located at North 17 West 24222 Riverwood Drive in Waukesha. I am counsel for Diane Owens and Paul Elliott. Diane recently just made a public statement. Now they're located at North 7040 Saucer Drive in Watertown, Wisconsin. The reason for my statement tonight is to express support on behalf of my clients for the zoning code amendment that is being proposed as it relates to the definition of agricultural tourism activity. As the board may recall, last year it had directed staff to draft an ordinance to define this term. This term was previously undefined in the code. So the intent behind it was to provide some more clarity and avoid any future ambiguity. This ordinance relates to the A2 zoning district, and my clients who are also they're owners of property that's commonly known as Wisteria Castle. And it's our understanding that this ordinance was drafted with Wisteria Castle in mind. And it is our understanding and position that the use proposed and that the term agricultural tourism activity would allow for my clients to operate as conditional use under that definition in the A2 zoning district. So with that said, we are, like I previously mentioned, asking the board to approve the ordinance that is amending the zoning code tonight as it is presented. And it's our position that this would provide additional clarity and hopefully avoid any future concern or dispute as it relates to the meaning of that term and the use of that term by a property owner in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. The third public comment is of a general nature, so that will go at the end of the meeting. Okay. We have a special order of business, presentation of Jefferson County Fairs to the Fair.
Hi everyone, I'm Amy Listel. I'm the director at the Jefferson County Fair Park, and tonight I'm excited to have with me our 2022 Fairs of the Fair, Maddie Besh. Maddie was crowned our Fairs of the Fair back in February, but as you'll hear in a couple moments, she is a busy lady, and so we are just getting started with promoting the county fair with Maddie's role this summer. She is in a public relations position for the county fair, and so her role will be to go around to meetings and events throughout the county over the next couple weeks promoting the fair. We'll be passing out yard signs and flyers and brochures with information about the fair. I apologize that I don't have some of those things ready for you tonight, but I do have a couple copies of our poster. If you'd like one, you can see me afterwards, and I would love to get you one. And without further ado, here's Maddie.
Hi everybody. Like Amy said, this is one of my first events, so please bear with me. Like many of you guys, I'm from here in Jefferson. I grew up on a hobby farm with my two younger sisters, and I have been just part of Jefferson County and community 4-H for, I'd say 12, 13 years now. I went to school in Fort Atkinson and graduated in 2020. Seeing as I grew up on a hobby farm, I was definitely involved in 4-H and the fair from the very beginning, whether that was showing pigs, more like chasing pigs around, showing chickens, photography, shooting sports, all sorts of stuff. So the fair has always been a special moment for me for every year. Now I just finished my sophomore year at UW-Platteville, where I'm studying mechanical engineering and earning a certificate in engineering management. At UW Platteville, I am involved in numerous clubs as well as other extracurriculars. And I actually just got back last Monday from a 2.5-week study abroad trip through Europe. So, yes, very busy. I also just yesterday started an internship at Adrc here in Jefferson, and that has also kept me busy, even though today was only my second day. Back to the fair, though, I'm really excited for this experience. Growing up in 4-H, I did have a lot of leadership opportunities, but this is a whole new ballgame. So I'm excited to meet more community members like yourselves and just to have a new experience. Moving on to the fair, though, we have all sorts of stuff lined up for our fair attendees this year. We have a ton of different grandstand entertainment, such as our typical tractor and truck pulls, as well as a couple new concert performers. And you can find that information on the flyers that Amy mentioned earlier, and those will be distributed throughout the county in the coming weeks. Other entertainment we have are Wolves of the World and the Pure Pups dock diving, and those will be put on multiple times every day. Family 5-packs are now on sale for the fair, so you can buy those at Premier Bank, at the Fair Park office, and room 111 here. And then the full schedule of the fair isn't always put on our big flyers. That's way too much to put on there. So you guys can find that on our website, which is jcfairpark.com. I'm excited to be here, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Maddie. Excuse me. Now we have a presentation of our 2021 audit report. Clifton Larson Allen.
Thank you, and thank you for having me in to spend just a few minutes with you, sharing the audit results for 2021. My name is Jake Linnell. I'm the audit principal from CLA, which is your third-party external auditors. And so we've got just a very brief agenda on the next slide here that'll take you through what I plan to cover today as it relates to the work we perform and the work that we do to ensure that your financial statements are appropriately stated for the year's activities. Just a little background on CLA. This is my third presentation with you here as your auditors, our third year performing the audit, but did just want to give you a little bit of background on the firm that you've hired itself. We are a national firm that specializes in working with municipalities, whether that be counties, cities, villages, towns, utilities, and really helping get through the audit process, both from a financial audit perspective as well as for the grant programs that you participate in throughout the year as well. So I've got a little bit of stats there in terms of how much work we do around the country, but in particular importance is we work with over half of the counties here in Wisconsin performing this similar level of work. So that's really the perspective that I bring here today in terms of as we make recommendations or as we perform our work, we're really trying to bring that breadth of experience as it relates to working with many similar organizations that are facing similar decisions and similar restrictions as it relates to the activities that you perform. Just myself personally here, I just got a few stats on the audit team, the folks that are actually performing the work here individually with your staff to move through the audit work. But similar to our firm as a whole, we specialize individually, and my entire career has been spent working with local governments to perform these audits, as well as additional services that may come up as we perform that work and identify some needs that municipalities may need as well. So that's just a little bit of background on the firm, but did want to get into the nuts and bolts of the audit results, and so I thought I'd start with the end and share the end result of our audit work is issuing an opinion on those financial statements, and that opinion is an unmodified opinion, or what's commonly referred to as a clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance we can provide you as your auditors that those financial statements are appropriately stated, free of any material misstatement, and that they're complete and accurate to the best of our knowledge, as well as your management team as well. So kind of to start with the end there, a good report there to begin with. We also issue some additional information related to specific audit requirements and what it entails to bring those financial statements to close throughout the year. So what I have listed here are the estimates that go into preparing that financial statement as a point in time. It says of 12/31/2021, and there are various long-term assets and liabilities that have specific requirements in how you value them, how you estimate them, and the required procedures to do that. We review all of those estimates that are prepared by your management team. In addition, we review the actuarial reports that are utilized to come up with those estimates to see that they're consistent with what we'd expect to see with the industry standards, as well as just what your overall experience at the county has been as well, and had no corrections or adjustments or changes proposed as it relates to the estimates that go into preparing that financial information as well. In addition to those disclosures that I just mentioned, we also would make note to you if there was any difficulties in counterperforming the audit or any kind of disagreements, those kinds of things. Happy to report there are no matters to discuss related to that. And then as it relates to the audit work that we perform, if we have any adjustments that we proposed but did not need to be posted for one reason or another, we would make you aware of anything that we were proposing that ultimately didn't make it to the final report, but we have no matters to report related to that. We did have one financial statement adjustment, or audit adjustment, if you will, as we performed our work. And we'll get into that in just a little bit because we had a recommendation as a result of that adjustment, so that could be incorporated into your future close processes as well. So I'll cover that in just a little bit. But again, as I mentioned, no disagreements with management, no outside consultations, those kinds of things. Nothing where we had to reach to something beyond what our typical audit team is to be able to perform that work. And then the bulk of the letter that we issue as a result of the audit process is actually a management representation letter, and that's management accepting responsibility over the financial statements as well, ensuring that the financial statements are appropriately stated and complete to the best of their knowledge as well. So the last slide here, as it relates to our letters that we issue, we did issue a management letter this year that relates to the audit adjustment that we identified. And we talked about this today at the Finance Committee level in a little bit more detail as well. So I'll keep this kind of high-level summary, but essentially the audit adjustment was related to reporting the fair market value of your investments, and some of the audit work that we did comparing various reports. We proposed an adjustment to management. They accepted that adjustment and we're in agreement with it, and we've made a recommendation for the procedures that can be put into place to include that process, that investment reconciliation process, into the future close periods. So again, talked about that in a little bit more detail this morning with the Finance Committee and had some additional feedback as well there. So that was good to kind of conclude that in future periods we'd expect that to be included as part of the normal close process. And then just briefly, I wanted to touch on the single audit. This process is focused on your federal and state grant programs. So the participation in various federal and state programs has different compliance requirements depending on the federal or state agency that you're working with. So we do perform work specific to those programs and opine on individual programs as it relates to that. That process is still underway as we complete our testing, but no matters to note at this point. As we have performed, as we've performed that testing, we've been able to move through the federal and state compliance requirements as they're required. So that testing kind of cycles through at the discretion of the federal and the state agencies, and we kind of have to follow that timetable for when that work is performed and how often it needs to be performed. But nothing to report as it relates to our testing there at this point. And actually, the next slide has my personal email information as it relates to if you did have any additional questions that you wanted to handle outside of a setting like this. But those are kind of the prepared remarks I wanted to highlight as it relates to the audit results, but happy to answer any questions that you have related to the detailed documents as well.
Questions from Mr. Linnell? Seeing none? Must have been very thorough. Thank you very much. Takes us to annual reports, item 10, finance. Mark DeVries.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mark. I'm your finance director. I've handed out the annual report. They should be on your desk for you to review. And for those of you that have been here for a while, I like to do something different every year. And so this year I did something different. And finance is kind of a boring topic, so I did it in a very boring kind of format. And it is a boring topic. It's about internal controls, and I'm not going to go through the presentation, but every year we do get questions from our auditors about whether we review internal controls with our finance committee and our board. And inevitably, they do pick one person from the board to interview, and I get a call from that person and to help me brief me up on the processes that we have over fraud and so forth. And so this is kind of my opportunity to kind of springboard off Jake's presentation and talk a little bit about the internal controls. I'm not going to talk through all the pages here, but I thought I would give you kind of, and especially for those of you that are new to the organization, an overview of the controls that we have over safeguarding assets, first of all, and accomplishing the missions of the county. And that's what internal controls seek to do, is really help your organization effectively accomplish the missions. And as it relates to finance, those missions are safeguarding our financial assets from theft, fraud, abuse, and waste. And also providing accurate and timely data for you all to make good decisions on. And so, like I said, I will let you all go through this, and you can feel free to call my office with any questions that you have about the internal controls. And also, I would like to say that, I do occasionally get phone calls from people, whether they be board members, department heads, or individuals from the public saying, hey, I was at an event and I kind of noticed this, and are you aware of this, and what are the controls over this situation? Typically people will come to me in confidence and want to disclose that to me and ask that I stay quiet about who it was that divulged the information. And I will always be happy to discuss that with people, and I will always keep those comments to myself as far as who came forward. But we do work to address those. So if you think that you see something that concerns you out there, you want to bring that to my attention, or you have questions about, what are those internal controls over this specific event or situation, I am always happy to entertain those conversations. So please come forward if you have any concerns, because this is part of our responsibility, is to make sure that our assets, our county assets, are safe from fraud and theft and abuse. And so with that, I'm just going to open it up to any questions that you might have about internal controls. I'll let you go through the presentation or the annual report on your own, but I did want to just open up a conversation about internal controls and let you know that that we take this very seriously. So thank you. That's all I have to report today.
Questions for Mark? Any questions for Mark?
No fireworks. Sorry, Blair.
Thank you, Mark. Second, annual report, Human Services, Kathy Cawley.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair and County Board Supervisors. It is my honor once again to present this evening's annual report. And here with me this evening is our Deputy Director, Brent Relo. So I thought it would be helpful this evening to provide an overview of our department and our divisions and share some key points. But don't worry, that bound annual report that you have in front of you, we're not going to go through the whole thing. We'll keep it a little bit shorter. So Jefferson County Human Services Department has 240 employees, if you can see the PowerPoint there, 5 divisions, and a budget of about $27 million. Our administrative division is organized into 3 teams. The fiscal team does all the accounting, the billing, the contracts, the financial reports, the payroll, determines the financial ability of consumers to pay, operates the protected payee program, and provides technical assistance for all of these things and other things. They work extremely closely with Mark and his great team, and we're very fortunate to have them. The maintenance team ensures our vehicles, buildings, and grounds are well kept. The administrative team oversees the front desk, completes all the filing, the scheduling, manages medical records, provides administrative support to everyone, including Dr. Haggart, who's our full-time psychiatrist. Some of the key points in 2021 for the administrative division were we had 278 vendor contracts, state and federal contracts, which Jake sort of just referenced, total $12.5 million. We became landlords of 2 triplexes in Fort Atkinson. So our buildings now include the Health and Human Building, Hillside, Leader House, Workforce, Dodge Street, and the 2 triplexes. We bill 13 different programs to Medicaid and insurance, and they include Community Recovery Services, Community Support Program, Comprehensive Community Services, Outpatient Clinics, Emergency Mental Health, Leader House Crisis Stabilization Facility, Birth to 3, Youth Justice Case Management, Adult Case Management, Wraparound, and Children's Long-Term Support. We collected over $4.5 million from Medicaid and Medicare in 2021, about $1.8 million from other insurance, and just under $1 million at $973,000 from Medicaid cost reporting. We have a fleet of 30 vehicles, again, thanks to Mark and to the Highway Department for all their help with that. And then we have 1 ADRC vehicle, 7 transportation program vehicles, and 2 wheelchair vans. And then going in alphabetical order, our next division would be our Aging and Adult Disability Resource Center division. This division also happens to be organized into 4 teams. The Aging and Disability Resource Center is a single access point for publicly funded long-term care. Provides benefits and options counseling and short-term case management. And then we have our nutrition program, which offers home-delivered meals and has reopened 2 congregate meal sites at this point. We also have the Dementia Care Specialist and Caretaker program, and they provide information and they help create safer places for people living with dementia and their families, and also for people living with other long-term illnesses. The transportation program then provides transportation for people over the age of 60 and for people who have a disability. And the last team in the division, the Adult Protective Services team, responds to allegations of abuse or neglect for people over the age of 60 or who have a disability or are vulnerable. The key points in 2021 for the Aging and ADRC division, the ADRC provided more resources and access to long-term care than any previous year. The Dementia Care Specialist, Benefit Specialists, and Caregiver programs all experienced more referrals and greater need for services. We expanded the transportation program to include weekends and scheduled routes between municipalities. The nutrition program provided home-delivered meals and a shelf-stable meal to more enrollees. And just something to keep in mind is 25% of the people in Jefferson County are over the age of 60, and of course, more of us are turning 60 each day, right? So, all right, and then moving on to the Behavioral Health Division. It is also organized into 4 teams. We did not plan it that way, it just happens. All the teams, when needed in this division, will help someone gain access to a psychiatric hospital or a placement when more support and supervision is needed. The Emergency Mental Health Team, otherwise known as Crisis Services, is available 24/7. They will go on scene. They respond with law enforcement. They're the first point of contact when there is a mental health or substance use crisis, and they also help everyone access our outpatient clinics. The Mental Health and Substance Use Outpatient Clinic provides individual and group psychotherapy for a wide variety of issues. Can be anything from depression and anxiety to someone who is experiencing suicide ideation or substance use issues. And then our comprehensive community service team provides intensive mental health and substance use treatment for children and adults through an extensive service array that includes employment services. The community support program is an intensive mobile wraparound treatment service with employment services for people with severe and persistent mental illness. And some of the key points for the Behavioral Health Division are there were 15,842 crisis contacts in 2021. It's a bit of a leveling off since 2020, but I always like to remind all of us that back in 2010, that number was 5,114. So more parents than ever sought services for children with mental health issues. We had 189 children seen in our outpatient clinic. It wasn't that long ago when we had 5 or 6. Our CCS received more referrals for children than any prior year. We assisted more people with finding and keeping employment, and we exceed the national and state averages on this. 8 people in Jefferson County died from suicide in 2021. They were not in treatment with us, so please help spread the word that treatment is available. We delivered evidence-based practices, we measured progress, and increased the number of successful discharges. And Brent's going to fill us in on our last 2 divisions.
Sure will. Good evening, and thank you, Kathy. It's my pleasure to continue to work us through our divisions, and we'll pick up with the Child and Family Division. We have 9 teams in our Child and Family Division, starting with our Birth to 3 team. They support families with children experiencing developmental delays prior to the age of 3. Our Birth to 3 program also does a wonderful job directing and coordinating our Busy Bee preschool, which is very unique to Jefferson County. We offer learning experiences for children in Birth to 3 as well as in the community alike. We also have our wraparound unit. Our wraparound unit is designed to provide a team meeting approach to community placements and keeping youth and families in placement and intact. Our Child Protective Services unit, their goal is to achieve safety, permanency, and well-being for families experiencing child abuse and neglect. Then we have our initial assessment and juvenile court intake. This is the starting point for most of our children and youth programming at Jefferson County. They receive all the juvenile referrals from law enforcement, truancy from schools, as well as all the child abuse and neglect calls, and mobilize immediately to go into the community and provide safe environments. Our youth justice team, they provide competency development, community protection, and victim support, otherwise known as the balanced and restorative justice model for our youth delinquency population in our community. In our children's long-term support area, they support children with disabilities in their home to live healthier, fuller lives. Then we have an alternate care unit. They provide temporary living arrangements until the family is ready to move forward on their own. And the last team in our Child and Families Division is our Parents Supporting Parents program. And that is one of the first, it is the first in the state, and they provide lived experiences for Child Protective Services families and help them navigate the Child Protective Services system from their point of view. Some key points from the children and families area. For 2021, our alternate care budget spending continued to be under budget for the 4th straight year. As I mentioned, Parents Supporting Parents was the first in the state of Wisconsin, and we were the first in the state of Wisconsin to start serving families in 2021 via a grant from Department of Children and Families. Unfortunately, the number of screened-in child abuse cases reached a 5-year high, meaning calls that rose to the level of needing our response in the community around concerns of abuse or neglect. Children's long-term support waiver wait list was eliminated as we increased services to our consumers, and that number rose from serving 189 in 2020 to serving 303 children in 2021. Youth justice referrals reached a 4-year high as well. And we're very proud that our Child Protective Services assessments were completed on time, and we made contacts with families within DCF's benchmarks to land us in the top 1% in Wisconsin in terms of timeliness outputs. Moving on to our last division, we have economic support. Economic support offers many programs. The first is energy assistance. They provide funding during the heating season. Our child care team provides subsidies for low-income working families to assist with child care payments. Badger Care is health care for low-income adults, pregnant women, and children. Medical assistance provides low-income residents with affordable health care. Then we have our food share benefit. That's a monthly allotment to low-income families and low-income households to purchase food. And we have our Children's First program. That's an employment case management program for non-custodial parents to meet the financial obligations back to the family of origin. And finally, we have emergency housing. That's funding for rental assistance or hotel stays for individual families that then links them up with job opportunities in the community. Our key points for economic support: they process applications successfully and on time at a 99.25 rate in 2021, which was leading the way in our consortium as well as the state of Wisconsin. 95,654 calls were answered assisting consumers in 2021. Energy assistance provided to 3,221 households in 2021. And crisis assistance via economic support was provided to 1,209 households in 2021. And we know, even with those staggering numbers, that 2022 we will see a large increase when the unwinding happens, which means they will implement eligibility verification once again post-COVID-19. So we will see a huge increase after that takes place. So with that being said, I'll turn it back to Kathy for our finishing remarks.
Well, thank you, Brent. And I just want to close with a few key points about the department going forward. When economic difficulties increase, it's often that we see our services are needed more, right? Everything from public benefits to transportation and nutrition to mental health and to all the programs for youth. One of the issues the department is facing is across Wisconsin and across this country, we have a shortage of mental health providers, in particular psychotherapists, and certainly psychiatrists and prescribers. The volatile cost drivers to the department will continue to be the increasing number of people who are homeless and the out-of-home placements for youth and adults and psychiatric hospitalizations. I do want you to know we have many success stories and we have multiple data sources that show human service programs meet the needs of people and we meet the required mandates. And lastly, I just want to pause and really thank all of you and our Human Service Board members, and certainly our county administrator who does so many wonderful things, including operating the PowerPoint and having everything go smoothly for us, but also our fellow department heads, such as Mark and Blair and many others. We really are a fine team here. I'm privileged to be a part of. So I also want to thank every employee, our 240 employees at the department, for their resiliency and their commitment to the work we do. So. And I welcome your questions at any time, whether it's now or Supervisor Roberts.
Ms. Roberts.
Oops. I think so. I just want to ask you how many people have had a problem with this formula issue for the babies, and have you been able to secure formula for those families?
So we, the families we serve, there are several that have reported to us that they are having problems with securing formula. The health department, though, offers the WIC program, the Women and Infant program, and so we sort of partner with them to seek resources and direct people there, and they have the other programs that go with formula and infants. We have had a number of communications from the Department of Health Services, and we talked about that earlier at the Human Service Board. None of them have great answers, unfortunately, at this point. We somehow, as kind of collectively as a community, we have to increase the production that's going on. And meanwhile, we problem solve with moms and families as those issues emerge. Sure.
Other questions? Other questions? See none, thank you very much. And lastly, but not least, UW Extension, Christine Wendt. Oh, sorry, Blair, I passed you up. Corporate Counsel, Blair Ward. Oh. That'll cost me.
That's gonna cost you 3 beers.
Good evening, Blair Ward Corporation Council. Most of you are aware that my office is primarily responsible for providing legal advice and counsel to you as County Board Supervisors, to the County Administrator, Department Head, staff. We do a lot of other things, and Kathy's presentation was a good presentation for me to follow because she talked a lot about what my office does and how we interact with human services. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on some of the things that you as County Board Supervisors may not be aware of that my office does. First of all, my office has a total of 5 attorneys, me and 4 assistants. I have Elena Zarwell, who does primarily mental health commitments, Whitney DeVoe, who does children in need of protection and services, and we have Tom Antheline and Kendall Wick, who are dedicated to child support enforcement. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what they all do. First of all, mental health commitments. Kathy talked quite a bit about that. She told you about the crisis that she deals with on a regular basis, or her department does, and how it's increased over the years. Mental health commitments involve my office when someone is involuntarily detained. Usually starts off with a report from a member of the public that someone is behaving in a way which causes them to believe that they may be having some mental health issues and that they may be a danger to themselves or others. At that point, law enforcement is called, human services is called. The person is given an opportunity, if appropriate, to seek mental health treatment. Now, they can go voluntarily, or if they refuse, then that's when the law says law enforcement can detain them involuntarily against their will. So they can be brought to a mental health facility to get the help that they need. But the law says if that happens, they have to be in front of a judge within 72 hours. And that's where my office comes in. We have to prepare a case. Elena, as I said, is responsible for that. She has to contact witnesses, doctors, law enforcement officers, maybe family members of the public who may have seen what happened, and she has to prepare her case and have them testify to prove that the statutory requirements have been met to detain someone involuntarily. So last year, there were 132 cases. The year before, there were 6 fewer. So there were 6 more from 2020 to 2021. Also involved in that area is filing petitions for guardianships and protective placements. Sometimes people, due to the infirmities of aging, can't make decisions for themselves, can't take care of themselves, and they need to be ordered into a facility, or a guardian needs to be ordered to make decisions for them. That also involves a court hearing. We work with human services on those cases as well. In 2019, the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors made a decision to transfer cases from the district attorney's office to the corporation counsel offices involving cases dealing with children in need of protection and services. Based on that reassignment of job duties, we hired another attorney to handle the caseload. Whitney DeVoe handles these cases. There's 3 primary cases: temporary physical custody, cases where a child is removed from the home due to concern of mistreatment or neglect. There were 32 of those cases last year. That was an increase of 6 from the year before. If the child isn't returned to the home shortly thereafter, another proceeding is filed called a Children in Need of Protection and Services petition, which means that the child could be removed from the home for a longer period of time. And if the parent wants the child back, the parent would need to meet certain conditions. This can go on for weeks, months, or even years. Human Services works with these parents to meet the conditions that have been ordered by the court to improve the living conditions so they can return the child to the home knowing that the child will be safe. There were 52 of those last year, an increase of 14 from the year before. And the last thing deals with termination of parental rights. If a parent doesn't meet the conditions ordered by the court, the last step would be to terminate their rights. They would no longer have legal rights as a parent to the child. We didn't have any in 2020, but we had 6 last year in 2021. Some of the other things that my office was involved with in 2021, I'm going to highlight. I'm not going to go over everything because there's simply too much to talk about. But one thing that stands out is the defense of a Planning and Zoning Committee decision issuing a conditional use permit for the We Energies liquefied natural gas facility. That was appealed. I represented the Planning and Zoning Committee on defending its decision in front of the Board of Adjustment, and that was a successful defense, and the Board of Adjustment upheld the decision of the Planning and Zoning Committee. I provided legal advice to the sheriff's office, working with unions. Sometimes due to the operational changes in the sheriff's office, due to staffing, due to COVID issues, the sheriff needs to change how he does business in the jail or with patrol, and he needs to deviate from what the collective bargaining agreement says. Well, if you know anything about union negotiations, you can't just change how business is done if you have a contract in place. So I work with the sheriff on entering side letters of agreement, memorandums of understanding, so the sheriff could temporarily change operations in the sheriff's office, and I appreciate the unions working with the county to allow this to happen. It was for the benefit of everybody. My office negotiated 5 leases with the telecommunications company to allow the sheriff's office to place communications equipment on towers throughout Jefferson County to increase the communications system throughout the county. Big change for Jefferson County we're all excited about, at least I am, is we're finally going to have a municipal code of ordinances in Jefferson County. This is one of the projects that I've had out there for a long time. Right now we have a number of ordinances on the county website, but there's no ordering system, there's no numbering system. It's difficult to search if you want to find out something about county ordinances. So we're working with a company that's going to codify the county ordinances. In the next few months we're going to have a nice codified county ordinance, and if you look at other cities and villages and counties, you will see what they have, and that's what we're going to have. So that's something that was long overdue, and I'm happy to report that we're making progress on that. I also serve as the president of the Wisconsin Association of County Corporation Councils. I've been doing that for just over 2 years. That's provided me with some unique opportunities. Had an opportunity to participate in a video conference with the Wisconsin Attorney General, where he was inquiring about possible changes needed for mental health commitments. I talked about a few minutes ago, changes in the procedures, how things have evolved over time. I also authored a letter to Governor Evers about the opioid litigation and enacting legislation that would help address the disbursement of these funds, and you'll be hearing about that soon as a county board, now that the opioid litigation cases are starting to settle and money is beginning to be paid out. I also drafted ethics opinions for 2 county board supervisors. All of you as county board supervisors have the ability to ask me to draft an ethics opinion if you are concerned that certain conduct of yours in your personal life may conflict, usually a financial conflict of interest, with your duty as an elected official. I can issue an opinion. If I issue an opinion to you, then that protects you from any type of prosecution for violating the ethics ordinance. You go to me, and if I say you can do something that it's not violating the ethics ordinance, then you can rest assured that you are not. Another thing that I'm involved with every year is foreclosing on tax properties. Every year, there are taxpayers in Jefferson County who don't pay their taxes. If they don't pay their taxes, Jefferson County could very well own their property. Usually they pay up at the last minute, but every year we take a handful of properties, then we put them up for sale. So if you're on the finance committee or attend finance committee meetings, you know what I'm talking about. You've probably been involved with that more than you would like to. I've worked with the Fair Park in negotiating contracts with acts. So all the acts that you're going to see today, or not today, but at this year's county fair, the bands and other acts, we entered into contracts with them to make sure everything goes smoothly at the fair. And finally, I work with planning and zoning on a regular basis, either interpreting the zoning ordinance or working with the zoning department on enforcement of the zoning ordinance. The normal protocol is for them to send a letter to the zoning violator asking them to correct their zoning violation. And if they don't, then I send a letter. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If my letters don't work, then I file a circuit court action seeking forfeitures of up to $10,000. So those are some of the things that keep me busy every day in my office. If there are any questions, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer them.
Is there any questions? Mr. Smith, Supervisor Smith.
Yeah, I've got one for you. We make decisions all the time that affect people, and if we have a resident who something that we did that would expose our gross incompetence, our decisions that, I don't know if it's personal or just, could be a variety of reasons, but it ends up in a lawsuit and they decide to sue someone on the board. Are we going to have to hire our own attorney, or are you going to represent us that, if you understand where I'm going with this, because I've been involved with other lawsuits where somebody was suing the police, and the police who was investigating it was being sued personally. And I'm just wondering what our liability as supervisors are at the point someone sues us personally besides suing the county.
If the conduct, which is the basis of the lawsuit, was due to actions in the county board supervisor's official capacity, then the county would assign legal counsel. I would expect our insurance company to assist with that, but normally it would be the county that would be being sued. I know you're using law enforcement as an example, and I've seen that as well, where you have law enforcement officers getting sued in their individual capacity, usually for excessive force, things like that. I've never seen a county board supervisor get sued in his or her individual capacity, but if it did happen, my opinion is that our insurance company would assign legal counsel to defend that county board supervisor, but it would also beg the question, what did that supervisor do to get named individually in a lawsuit? So we'll have to take a look at the facts before I can give you a definite answer, but that's my general answer based on your fact situation. Any other questions? I finally would like to introduce Serena Stoller. I think I missed her. She's our county board reporter and paralegal, also an important part of our corporation counsel office. She's here at every county board meeting and works with our county clerk, making sure that our meetings run smoothly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Blair. Sorry for the oversight. Now, UW Extension, Christine.
Oh, good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here. And it's a pleasure to be in front of all of you all and with you all that are attending virtually. So my name is Chrissy Wen. I'm an Area Extension Director for the UW Division of Extension. And I serve in a multi-county role. So I have Jefferson County, Rock County, and Walworth County. And in those, I'm an administrative leadership position. So I'm here tonight to share a little bit about Extension. You all should have our annual report in your packet, along with with this information. I have some information over here that's kind of hot off the press that I put here, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll talk about it at the very end, and you can grab it if you so choose for anybody that's in the audience. So Extension's mission is to connect the people throughout Wisconsin with the latest research and knowledge by responding to community needs. And so change is inevitable, as we all know, and over the past 100+ years that Extension's been in existence, we've really tried hard to evolve and to continue to meet the ever-changing needs that are happening within our counties and the communities within those counties. So we have educators throughout Wisconsin and in all the counties. We work with 5 of our 4-year campuses, and then we also have educators on 5 of the tribal nations throughout Wisconsin. The partnership with Jefferson County is integral to the work that we do. We are a unique county department in that most of our staff are university staff, except for our county support staff. And we have an annual partnership contract that we enter in with the county. And then we also function as a regular county department, which brings me here tonight. So we have a county budget. We have lots of things that we do just as any other county department would. Speaking about Extension's programmings, we cover 6 areas. We have agriculture, community development, health and well-being, human development and relationships, natural resources, and positive youth development. So Extension's programs are delivered locally by dedicated staff, and the staff are experts at translating the research that's coming from our specialists and faculty throughout the UW system into practical solutions that meet identified local needs. So the educators we have here in Jefferson County come with an entire support system behind them. These are the behind-the-scenes support that we come with as we enter into this contract with Jefferson County. So these might be things that include translating documents through our UW Language Access Office into alternative languages, our curriculum development specialists that bring programming that educators can use with our local people, needs assessment support, and then best practices for expanding access. Educators and staff, they're listed on the front side of your report. You'll see them here, and I realize that next year I'm going to have to come up with a new format because I'm not going to have any more space on this column for the new people that we have in the office. So I'll talk about this here in just a minute. But on this front page here lists those folks that are in our office, including Kim, Caitlin, and our brand new regional dairy educator, Allison Fowl. She just started last Monday. So 2021 was a rebuilding year for Extension in Jefferson County. We had some staff turnover. We had some positions that had gone unfilled. And so I'm happy to report that we are fully staffed right now. And so I'm going to talk about some future things here that I'm looking forward to. So as with every county department and those that you heard tonight, we all have a story to share, and Extension is certainly no different than that. On the second page of the report, there's a lot of words, so I'm not going to go through it, but I would like to highlight, and for you to take time, if you would so choose, to just read about the outcomes that our programming has had here in Jefferson County throughout 2021. So this list does not include educators or other specialists that are doing work for Jefferson County residents that do not work in Jefferson County office. So this might be a specialist or some of those other people that I had mentioned previously. This might be the Wisconsin Leadership Academy would be one example of a place where we don't have an educator in specifically for that role, but Jefferson County residents in leadership have attended some of those workshops and so forth. So if anybody would like to know more about those extended, those plus ones that we bring, I'd be happy to pull up a report, but I don't have that with me today. But please just let me know if you need something like that. I'd be happy to do that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about tonight for where we're going and where we're going to be at in the future here. Steve Shemileski, he is a 0.3 FTE here in Jefferson County. He is shared with Waukesha County. You'll see him there right in the middle. He's our community educator. And he will be introducing components, or I'm sorry, he will be discussing with Jefferson County Parks and Trails stakeholders to determine how a friends group could help improve and sustain some outcomes. So that's some of the work locally that he's doing with the county department currently. Jerry Wilczynski, he's our newer 4-H educator. He just started this spring, and he will be beyond 4-H, which is a massive workload, but he will be introducing some components of the Juntos program this fall. Juntos in Spanish means together, which works to unite community partners to provide Latino 8th through 12th grade students and their parents with knowledge, skills, and resources to encourage them to work to gain access to college. I'm also happy to share that participation in Jefferson County 4-H has increased by 9.3% this year. And all of the numbers for our community clubs, volunteers, and youth participation are found here in these circles listed on the report. For those in the audience who were not in 4-H, such as myself, I will admit that, the 4-H's represent head, heart, hands, and health. That means that we are committed to providing opportunities for youth to learn life skills like decision-making, problem-solving, caring for others, generosity, making healthy choices, and all of that through project-based learning. And I think that Maddie was a prime example of someone that can have that leadership role in our communities that and through the fair. So I think that was a great leeway for me here. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the 219 volunteers that make all of this happen in our 25 community clubs. So there's a lot of activity happening within our 4-H group, and it's very vibrant. And if you have more questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them or contact Jerry. He's just been an asset to our office already and the 4-H program. We have regional agriculture educators. So Jordan Schuler, she is our regional crop educator. She does serve multiple counties. She is Rock, Jefferson, and Walworth. And then Allison Fow, she's our very recent hire as a regional dairy educator, and she serves Dodge, Dane, Jefferson, Rock, and Walworth. So she has a larger geographical area that she'll be serving. Both have hit the ground running. We have a newsletter now out for our crop people in agriculture and so forth. So we're really looking to seeing how those programmings can impact the agriculture community in Jefferson County. And the FoodWise program. This by some might be considered our plus one. So this is a buy one, get one, if you will. Because of our partnership with Jefferson County, we're able to bring FoodWise into the county at a minimal cost. So FoodWise provides nutrition education to our low-income residents, individuals and families, and works with a lot of partners here in Jefferson County. So this program is funded completely through the USDA Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Their budget runs through the university, but they do have for Jefferson County $181,000 budget that was just approved. So that's something that we bring into the county also as part of this partnership that we have. I talked about the minimal expenses. The county does provide some office space for them to work in as they're here and floating through the county, and also just some general office expenses if they need paper or something like that. So next week you'll find them working with the Watertown Family Connections at the Watertown Public Library. So that's where they will be at next week. So we work very hard to connect the people from all corners of the county to the university. I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have. Always feel free to reach out to me. And I'm up for coffee anytime, willing to talk more about extension. There is a QR code on here. If anybody has a phone and they would want to jump on our website quickly, you're welcome to scan that and get onto the website to learn more. And I mentioned some hot off the press items that are over there. Next week, Extension is putting on a statewide pollinator week. So they're going to be doing a lot with pollinator education. It's a statewide campaign, and it raises awareness about our incredible pollinators that we have. So if you're interested, you can grab a flyer. They're having a poster contest for any age, and lots of other virtual webinars and activities happening throughout the state. So you're welcome to that. And I'm open to any questions.
Questions for Ms. Wen? Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Takes us to committee reports, resolutions, and ordinances. Finance Committee. Item A, resolution amending the 2022 Land and Water Conservation Department budget. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Resolution number 2022-16. In 2020, the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors authorizes the Jefferson County Land and Water Conservation Department to apply for an early detection and response grant from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. The purpose of the grant is to manage a population of invasive farmites located near the Rock River on County Highway N. A grant of $5,700 was awarded to Jefferson County by the Department of Natural Resources in 2021, and work on the project will begin in the fall of 2022. These funds are not included in the 2022 county budget. Therefore, a 2022 budget amendment is required to increase income and expenditures for this grant. The Land and Water Conservation Department participated in the multi-discharger variance program through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Rock River Basin industries and municipalities provide funds to counties to implement conservation projects that will reduce phosphorus delivery to waterways. The amount of funding from this program included in the 2022 budget was an estimate provided by the Department of Natural Resources. The final amount of funds received in 2022 was $27,860, more than the estimate. Therefore, a 2022 budget amendment is required to increase income and expenditures for this program. The Land and Water Conservation Committee approved this resolution at its May 18, 2022 meeting and recommended for it to the County Board for approval. Fiscal Note. This is a budget amendment and increases revenues and expenditures by $5,700 for the early detection and response grant and $27,860 for the multi-discharge variance program. This resolution authorizes the County Finance Director to make the budget adjustments necessary to enact this resolution. As a budget amendment, County Board approval requires a 2/3 vote of the entire membership of the County Board. 20 members of the 30-member County Board must vote in favor of the budget amendment. Mr. Chair, I move for passage of this resolution.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Christensen. Questions? Discussion? This will take a 2/3 vote, so it will be a roll call vote.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes.
We have 28 yes, 0 no, 1 abstain, and 1 absent.
Mark Cruz. Mark Cruz was the abstention. Okay, thank you. The resolution passes. Resolution accepting Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Snowmobile Trail Aids Grant for the construction of a snowmobile bridge and amending the 2022 Parks Department budget. Mr. Jones.
Resolution number 2022-17. Jefferson County participates in the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Snowmobile Trail Aid Program funded by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Recreation Grant, which provides funding for the development and maintenance of approximately 224 miles of public snowmobile trails in Jefferson County. Part of the Department of Natural Resources Snowmobile Program allows for funding to be allocated through an application process for the maintenance and repair of snowmobile infrastructure such as bridges and culverts. Through this grant program, the Jefferson County Snowmobile Alliance and Jefferson County Parks Department thought funds to replace a bridge that is no longer safe for public or the volunteers who groom the county snowmobile trails. This bridge crossing is located along the public snowmobile trail south of Watertown near the intersection of 14A. This grant will fund 100% of the snowmobile bridge construction. Jefferson County expects to complete this bridge replacement in the 2022 field season, which requires an amendment to the 2022 Parks Department budget to authorize acceptance and expenditure of these grant funds. The Parks Committee reconsidered this resolution at its meeting on May 17, 2022, and the Finance Committee considered this resolution at its meeting on June 14, 2022. Both committees recommended forwarding this resolution to the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors for approval. Fiscal note. This is a budget amendment that increases the Jefferson County Parks budget revenue and expenses by $51,500. There is no impact to Jefferson County levy. This project is 100% funded through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Snowmobile Trail Aids Program. This resolution authorizes the County Finance Director to make the budget adjustments necessary to enact this resolution. As a budget amendment, County Board approval requires 2/3 vote for the entire membership of the County Board. 20 members of the 30-member County Board must vote for favor of this budget amendment. Mr. Chair, I move for passage of this resolution.
Who was the second? Supervisor Gulick was the second. Questions? Discussion? Seeing none, this is a budget amendment, so we will do a roll call vote.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes.
We have 29 yes and 1 absent.
The resolution passes. Takes us to item 12. Human Resources Committee, resolution eliminating part-time financial system specialist and creating a full-time budget analyst 1 position in the finance department. Supervisor Brogler.
Resolution number 2022-18, eliminating a part-time financial systems specialist and creating a full-time budget analyst 1 position in the finance department. As Jefferson County continues to grow and thrive, its financial budgeting and accounting systems are becoming more and more complex. Also, the increasing volatility and uncertainty in the economy makes it necessary for Jefferson County to enhance its focus on budget variance analysis and reporting. The Finance Department has recently conducted an internal study on the financial system specialist position and has determined that with the implementation of the Munis system, some of the programming and financial systems responsibilities of the position are outdated. Further, the challenges of the changing economic environment described previously have made it necessary to propose changes to the position that would assist county with meeting these challenges. The Finance Director and the County Administrator are requesting to eliminate the current vacant part-time .8 full-time equivalent financial systems specialist and create 1 full-time budget analysis 1 position. The position will be budgeted through the increase in property tax levies in the Finance Department. Currently, if the position remains at the current grade and benefit level, the additional cost to implement this change in 2022 is estimated to be $5,642. The Finance Department is requesting to allocate contingency funds for this change. The resolution requesting the elimination of a part-time financial system position and creation of a full-time budget analysis 1 position in the Finance Department was considered by the Human Resources Committee on May 17, 2022, and recommended for approval by the County Board. Fiscal Note. The elimination of a part-time financial system specialist position and the creation of a full-time, fully benefited budget analysis 1 position, assuming similar grading and full benefits, will cost an additional $5,642 of tax levy for 2022. The Finance Department requests that this increase be funded through a transfer from the contingency fund to accommodate this request. This is a budget amendment. The County Board approval requires a 2/3 vote of the entire membership of the County Board, 20 of the 30-member County Board. I move for passage.
Do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Triple. Questions? Discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote?
Supervisor Morris,
Yes.
we have 29 yes and 1 absent.
Thank you. The resolution passes. Takes us to resolution approving a temporary suspension of ordinance 2012-06, the civil service ordinance as relates to the 60 college credit education requirement at time of hire for deputy sheriffs.
Resolution number 2022-19. To be eligible for certification of Wisconsin law enforcement officer, Wisconsin law requires that an applicant must complete a 720-hour law enforcement academy program at an academy certified by the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Standards Board. In addition to several other requirements to enroll in an academy, law enforcement academy students must complete 60 college credits prior to enrolling in an academy. However, law enforcement academy applicants who are sponsored by a law enforcement agency, such as the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, may complete the 60 credit requirement within 5 years of hire. Even though Wisconsin law allows the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office to hire deputies with less than 60 college credits, Jefferson County, through its civil service ordinance, requires that all applicants for deputy sheriff have 60 college credits upon hire. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, along with Human Resources Administration, continues to consider different methods to recruit and retain successful applicants for deputy sheriff positions. One approach is to increase the number of qualified and diverse applicants for deputy sheriff's position is to allow the state law allowing candidates to obtain the 60 college credit requirement within 5 years of hire and not upon hire. The sheriff, Chief Deputy, Human Resource Director, and the County Administrator are requesting to suspend the Civil Service Ordinance requirement of 60 college credits upon hire and to utilize the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Standards Board hiring practice, which allows applicants to obtain their 60 college credits within 5 years of employment or be subject to termination by the Sheriff's Office. This resolution requesting the temporary suspension of Civil Service Ordinance 2012-06 as it relates to the 60 college credit education requirement at the time of hire was considered by the Human Resource Committee on May 17, 2022, and is recommended for approval by the County Board. Fiscal note, there is no fiscal impact. I move for passage.
Do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Herbst. Discussion. Supervisor Gulick.
Yes, thank you. Reviewing this resolution, I have several concerns about it. First, as it's written, it speaks to being a temporary suspension, but the way the resolution is currently written, it is a suspension, should it pass, it's a suspension until the county board takes further action. That strikes me as being more permanent than temporary. I'm pondering offering a friendly amendment to cause that to be a sunset of perhaps 1 year. My more substantial concerns with the resolution have to do with training and preparation of our officers. I have great respect and admiration for somebody going into policing and somebody who wants to become a law enforcement officer. I think the 60 university credit requirement is a minimum standard and not that high of a bar overall. I think considering challenges to policing over the last 30 or 40 years, the greater scrutiny of policing in our society large, I'm not speaking specifically of Jefferson County, but of our larger American society, raises concerns with me should we decide to lower this standard for hiring. I think we've heard a lot about mental health issues. We've heard a lot about it tonight in terms of how our police officers are regularly caused to engage in issues relative to policing that deal with mental health issues. That requires a great degree of skill, personnel handling, and caution, I think. I just have concerns about this. I want to be respectful also of our sheriff's department. And one of the things I thought about as I was offering these comments is as I look through the sheriff's department annual report, I didn't see anything in there about recruitment efforts. And I'm curious as to what actually those recruitment efforts are and how those recruitment efforts have been perhaps enhanced in recent years relative to shortages in qualified personnel. I don't know if there's anybody from the sheriff's department that could speak to that tonight. If not, I would also offer the possibility of tabling this until we could hear directly from the sheriff's department and speak with our county sheriff. Thank you.
So first of all, I'll answer, Mr. Waymeyer, do you want to echo the question here?
So just to answer a couple quick questions, not to get into some of the policy discussion. So to answer the last part, the Sheriff's Department has actually really stepped up a lot of their recruitment efforts, especially over the last 18 to 24 months. Specifically, Captain Margaret Gray, who's our jail administration captain, has been given that lead assignment to run basically a recruitment and retention group of people that are out on the street. So if you follow the Facebook page of the Jefferson County Sheriff on a weekly basis, you'll see a lot more postings going on. Part of this relates to recruitment efforts, not only from a public standpoint, but it is getting to the technical colleges where many of these academies are going on to look at folks who are looking at graduating. Now, right now, one of the challenges we have is many of the folks, we talk about the sponsorship by agencies. Most of the technical colleges in our area, the classes are full that are all responsible by agencies. It's very hard to find. 5 years ago, and Supervisor Drain could probably talk more about this from his experiences, it was not unusual that you would have someone coming out who wanted to become a law enforcement officer and pay for themselves to go through technical college to get certified and all that. Right now, with the issues related to hiring, we are sponsoring folks. So when we bring someone on, we're sending them to the academy, we're paying for the academy and paying their salary while they're going through the academy. So point being is they've done a lot. They're continuing to work. We just sent a crew out to, I believe it was Philadelphia, the early part of this year, with a specific focus on how to recruit this next generation right now, bringing some of those ideas back. We recently met, Terry and I, the HR director, met with the leadership of the Sheriff's Department about the recruitment. We met with the management level from sergeants all the way up, talking about some ideas that might work. But a lot of it's that word of mouth, and so it goes back to that recruitment effort that they're trying to do. Just a bigger policy, why it's kind of written this way, but I understand your comments, is we are looking at a greater overhaul to the overall civil service ordinance that is being reviewed now for potential additional recommendations back to the county board. Has not been updated in some time. We are looking at some significant transitions coming up within the Sheriff's Department from leadership positions throughout, along with the hiring process that we have. This was a component that the Sheriff and Chief Deputy thought was needed earlier than waiting for that to move forward. That's why this was brought separately. So,
Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I didn't really hear what the definition of temporary was. Was there a specific time that was ever considered? Maybe you already said that, but I missed it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, there was not, and I think the sheriff will be open if there is a definition that you all, as a board, would like to put in there as kind of a sunset clause. As we look to see, does this help us with the recruitment effort? But just as a reminder, it goes back to the comment I brought about the overall civil service ordinance. I expect that will be before the board in the next 2 to 3 months with some other recommended changes.
Other discussion? Supervisor Drana.
Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo some of the comments that Supervisor Gullick made. My concern is, for people that don't know, I spent 28 years as a deputy sheriff here in Jefferson County. A lot of that was as union president. My concern is the termination part. How are we terminating people after 5 years if they don't complete the 60 credits? I mean, that seems like a can of worms. I've been through a lot with the union, and I think that's huge. I mean, we bring them on, they don't do it. After 5 years, where does it go? I don't think I support this. Thank you.
Supervisor Morris.
Thank you. I believe that the way this is written is that it will bring it into correlation with current state law. In other words, my understanding of this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we have required the 60 college credits to be achieved prior to going through the police academy. And I think the change in this resolution, if I'm not mistaken, is to bring our civil service, this resolution, into agreement with current state law and practices around the state, which is that there's a 5-year window to earn those 60 college credits after completing the academy. So we're not doing something that's abnormal. We're actually doing something that's done entirely around the state of Wisconsin. If they don't meet those requirements, I suppose it can be done to them what is done in any other situation where they don't meet the requirements after 5 years. But that's not uncommon, nor is it necessarily unfair. Likewise, I don't think the word temporary would be against the sunset clause. So if someone would like to offer the amendment of a sunset clause, perhaps being 1 year, I don't think the sheriff's department would be disagreeable to that. I say that as the chair of the committee. Thank you.
Supervisor Gullick, you had your hand up. Well, Supervisor Smith, you speak first before somebody speaks a second time.
As I'm reading this, it says, or subject to termination. Does that mean it's just under discussion or that they would be terminated?
You want to answer that?
Blair, do you want to opine on that? Or?
My opinion is that they would be terminated because they would no longer qualify to be a law enforcement officer under state statutes.
Supervisor Gullick.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the reply. I think I want to be clear in my mind that the academy training is a different set of training than is the preparation of 60 university credits as required. And what we're talking about here is the waiver of the 60 university credits prior to hiring. In conversations with other sheriff's departments in the state, including Eau Claire County and the Eau Claire City Police Department, it seems to be common that the 60 credit requirement is in place. However, in those departments, I was told today that it's rare that they hire somebody with just 60 university credits, but more common with a 4-year baccalaureate degree. An additional concern I have as I've been pondering the responses here is that if Jefferson County reduces its requirement, lowers its standard, and I say that very cautiously with all respect to our law enforcement personnel, I'm concerned further, how do I put this politely, at the kind of recruits that may be drawn to a locale with a lower standard. And I think this is a time in our society and our greater community that we are very cautious about these kind of changes, especially, as I said a few minutes ago, as our society scrutinizes policing more aggressively. I'm concerned further about the liability that the county might incur should something awful happen and it be traced back in some way to a reduction in standards. Thank you for your time.
Any other questions, discussion? Supervisor Brogler.
I'm chairman of HR and I brought this forth, but hearing all the discussion tonight, it does seem it would be in the best interest that we postpone this to the next county board meeting where we could actually have the sheriff or the deputy sheriff here to answer these questions. I mean, the other gentlemen have gave great answers, but the heart of this is coming from the sheriff's department. So I would make a motion that we postpone it till next
There's a
month.
motion to postpone. Do I have a second? Second. Discussion on the motion to postpone.
Any other comment?
What? Supervisor Smith?
One solution might be that you put a minimum of 40 credit hours before they get hired, or instead of having somebody without any college, set a standard where within 5 years you would be able to achieve the other 20 credits or whatever it might be.
That can be taken under advisement by the committee. Any other comments, questions, discussion? There's a motion to postpone on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Those, is that Supervisor? Okay.
I vote aye.
It will be postponed then, until the next county board meeting. Thank you. All right, takes us to item 13, Parks Committee, resolution authorizing grant application to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant Program, the Federal Recreation Trails Program, and the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have resolution number 2022-20. The Jefferson County Parks Department is seeking grant funds to complete a recreation trail for hiking, biking, and cross-country skiing on the right-of-way owned by We Energies and known as the Interurban Trail. The proposed trail is 10.96 miles long in length and is located between the city of Watertown, Wisconsin, and the city of Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. This off-road paved trail connection will be built on the former interurban rail line and connects the city of Watertown to the city of Oconomowoc. The project is located primarily in Jefferson County, 10 miles, and a portion in Waukesha County, Waukesha County, 1 mile. The city of Watertown and the city of Oconomowoc are project boundaries. This resolution authorizes Jefferson County Parks to seek and accept additional funding for this project through the Wisconsin DNR Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant Program. The Parks Committee considered this resolution at its meeting on May 17, 2022, and recommended forwarding to the County Board for approval. Fiscal Notes. This grant could provide up to $249,999 toward the construction of structures and the trail on Phase 3 of the Jefferson Interurban Trail Project. This is a budget amendment that increases revenue and expenditures in the Parks Department up to $249,999. This resolution authorizes the County Finance Director to make the budget adjustments necessary to enact this resolution. As a budget amendment, County Board approval requires 2/3 vote of the entire membership of the board, and that's 20 members of the 30-member County Board. I move for adoption of this resolution.
Do I have a second? Second, Supervisor Gulick. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Supervisor Morris,
Yes.
okay, we have 26 yes, 1 no, 2 abstain, 1 absent.
The resolution passes. Takes us to item 14, Planning and Zoning Committee. Supervisor Jekyll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Report to the honorable members of Jefferson County Board of Supervisors. Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee, having considered petitions to amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County, filed for public hearing held on May 19, 2022, as required pursuant to Wisconsin statutes. Notice thereof having been given and being duly advised of the wishes of the town boards and persons in the areas affected, hereby makes the following recommendations. Approval of petitions as listed. Dated this 23rd day of May 2022, Blaine Paulson, Secretary. Moves us on to ordinance number
4.
Amending Jefferson County zoning ordinance. While reviewing Jefferson County zoning ordinance, the Planning and Zoning Committee determined that agricultural tourism should be defined. The committee drafted and approved draft definition, which was provided to the 16 towns within Jefferson County for their review and recommendation to the committee. A majority of the 16 towns subject to county zoning must approve the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance before zoning ordinance can be officially amended. 13 of the 16 towns within Jefferson County approved the proposed definition of agricultural tourism activity. 2 towns recommended denial, and 1 did not provide a recommendation. A public hearing was held at the proposed amendment on April 21st, 2022, and Planning and Zoning Committee reviewed the proposed amendment, town recommendations, and public comment on April 25th and May 23rd, 2022, and recommended forwarding this ordinance to the County Board of Supervisors to adopt the definition of agricultural tourism activity. I move for adoption of this ordinance, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lindell. Questions, discussion? Supervisor Brogler.
Is it possible to know which 2 towns denied it?
Sullivan was one, Matt is, and town of Jefferson. And I believe it's the town of Jefferson that did not give the reason. It was the town of Sullivan, if I recall. It had something about ag demonstration, but it's already covered in the ordinance, and we included that in here anyway, so. Supervisor Kennard.
I can speak to the town of Sullivan's decision, I guess. I'm the chair of their planning committee. We felt it was too tightly wound, I guess. And if they were going to, reading it, I see you've added a sentence here about crop demonstrations. That wasn't in the original one. And we felt that if a farmer was going to have a crop demonstration, he'd have to rezone to A2, get a conditional use permit to have his crop demonstration for a couple hours. It just looked like it was, once you define it, we felt that you would, it would be covered and you would have to get an A2 zone and just for a crop demonstration that would last a few minutes out in the field.
If I recall, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. That's already an allowed use in an A1 zone, correct? So it was already covered in the ordinance. Any other questions, discussions? Supervisor Smith.
Is this in relationship to the castle and what went through that this is what is going to be what they can apply for a conditional use permit?
They can certainly apply at any time, yes. And but this is a definition that was needed because there was no strict definition in the ordinance.
Then I have a question for the members who are on zoning, that assuming this passes, which, defining our ordinance certainly makes sense. As this now goes back to zoning, what are they going to have to do to comply that the castle fits within this ordinance? What specifically can they do to make it so that they can get their conditional use permit? Because as I read this, we waste another year of their life and all of a sudden they get a no in a year and we end up in a lawsuit, which, it's just continuing the agony. So I'd like to know what they're going to have to do to comply to get a conditional use permit with this definition.
It'll be like anybody that applies. Matt, you want to address this?
Yeah, to elaborate off of Supervisor Nance's comments, it'd be up to the applicant to supply an application that they feel meets that definition and that proposed use or conditional use for that zoning district. And then from there, it'd be up to the Planning and Zoning Committee to make the interpretation if the application meets the zoning ordinance and requirements.
So I'd like to get something more specific, because all I see is this: we've wasted another 9 months of their lives, and this is going to go to zoning, and we're going to have the same opposition from the same people. And a year from now, we're going to be in a lawsuit because, as I see this, to have 5 members of zoning with 100 years of service here, to have them come here with a house that got an occupancy permit in 2020, and they're suggested they apply under an ordinance that only applies to barns built before 1970. You know, all we've done is wasted several years of their lives. Now we're going to waste another year of their life, and in a year we're going to tell them no. So, you know, all I see is this is just going to bring on a lawsuit a year from now, and I can't think that we're somehow going to be responsible for lost revenue. And it's, you know, between depositions and everything else, all this is doing is kicking the can down the road. So, you know, I'd like to know that this is actually going to accomplish something in allowing them to get a conditional use permit. So, you know, we could talk around this and kick the can, but to me, this isn't solving the problem with getting them a conditional use permit, because I think it's going to still end up with the same opposition and zoning that they've had for the last 2.5 years.
Any other discussion, questions, comments? Supervisor Kennard.
I guess, how would the castle fit within this definition, I guess? Is it something that I'm not seeing here that would allow what they want to do, or is there some other avenue in the ordinance that they would pursue?
Again, you can answer this if you'd like, Matt. Otherwise, Larry, you may want to answer this. I could too, but go ahead. Depends on what the application.
On a general note, that has been the brunt of the Planning and Zoning Committee's discussion over the last couple of months, as they've been wordsmithing the definition that Corporation Counsel Blair and myself have been putting together, and the towns have kicked around. As you heard Supervisor Kennard's comments about the definition, it's a tricky definition to wrap around, and then keeping in mind some other aspects that are floating around. So to your point, that is an item of discussion that keeps floating around. Blair, if you have anything else.
Well, yeah, the owners of the property have an attorney, and I talked with the attorney a couple of times, and they gave a public comment tonight, so they're probably listening to this right now. But it's my expectation that they would look at the definition of agricultural tourism activity if it's passed by the county board tonight, and then resubmit a petition to do what they wanted to do on their property that would incorporate the elements of agricultural tourism activity. Right now, we don't know what that is. We're kind of speculating on what that will be, but some of the things in the definition that stand out to me as it would relate to that property would be the fact that there would be direct marketing of crops incorporated into finished products and made available to the public. I mean, that could be local meats, it could be crops that are grown locally, it could be wine that's made from local grapes or something along those lines. But that really is up to the Planning and Zoning Committee, and the Planning and Zoning Committee doesn't know what its decision is going to be because they haven't seen the petition. They can look at the definition, but in order to apply that definition, they have to see the petition based on what the proposed use is. So we'll see what's presented to the county board or to the Planning and Zoning Committee, and that's the only way we're going to know if what they propose is going to meet what's in the definition. But I would expect them to take the definition and make sure their petition is drafted very carefully to incorporate as much as they can of this definition into their petition.
Any other questions, discussion? No, I think we just simple voice vote, isn't it? Yes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. The definition passes, the ordinance passes, moves us on to the next ordinance. Supervisor Drakel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ordinance number 2022-4, amending official zoning map. Whereas Jefferson County Board of Supervisors is hereto been petitioned to amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County, and whereas petitions as listed were referred to the Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee for a public hearing on May 19th, 2022, and whereas the proposed amendments have been given due consideration by the Board of Supervisors in open session, now therefore be it ordained that Jefferson County Board of Supervisors does amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County as listed. I move for adoption of this ordinance.
Supervisor Kennard.
I will abstain for potential conflict of interest.
Supervisor White.
I must also abstain for a potential conflict.
Duly noted. Who seconded it? Supervisor Christensen. Okay. For the record here. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance is passed. Takes us to item 15, appointments by county administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Waymire.
By virtue of the authority vested in section 59.18, parent 2, parent B of the Wisconsin statutes, I respectfully request confirmation of the following appointments to the Blue Spring Lake Management District, Mr. John Kennard of Hellenville for a term ending April 23rd, 2024, to the Lower Spring Lake Protection and Rehabilitation District, Mr. John Kennard of Hellenville for an indeterminate term. For the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Mr. Ari Roberts of Watertown, Wisconsin, 3-year term ending July 1st, 2025. Mr. Laverne Burens of Jefferson, Wisconsin, a second alternate for a 3-year term ending July 1st, 2025. And finally, to the Board of Health, Ms. Jessica Colburn or Dr. Jessica Colburn of Whitewater, Wisconsin, for an unexpired term ending May 14th, 2024. I respectfully request confirmation of these appointments.
Moved by Supervisor Brauger. Who is the second? Supervisor Gulig. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor of these appointments, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, they are appointed. And appointments by the County Board Chair, Alex Brooks, the DNR rep to the Local Emergency Planning Committee for an indeterminate term. Amy Renard to the Broadband Working Group for a term ending April 23rd, 2024. Jerry Hofferman to the Fair Park Committee for a term ending April 23rd, 2024. And Deborah Paul Kine to the Fair Park Committee for a term ending April 23rd, 2024. Takes us to public comment of a general nature. No, they're my appointments. So public comment. Ms. Haft. If you do not know Ms. Janet Sarah Haft, she's one of our former supervisors and was the first committee chairman I served under on my very first term.
Good evening. I'm great. I come to you this evening. I'm so concerned about gun violence, and I sit at home and I think, what can I do? And it occurs to me, thanks to my service for 10 years on the Fair Park Committee, what I can do is ask you, and particularly you people on the committee, to stop sponsoring the gun shows. There are many places where people can buy guns following rules and regulations. I know somebody who once sold $500 worth of guns in the parking lot during one of the gun shows. Just no regulation, no accounting, no nothing. I see that there is a gun show scheduled for December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th this year. I have no idea if it's just a casual thing, if there's an official contract. I would think the committee could work with Corp Counsel Ward to make that not happen. I'm asking to have this be an item on the July 7th meeting of the Fair Park Committee. And I really want to get this done. To the rest of you who are not on the Fair Park Committee, please keep an eye on this, see what happens. I don't think it should have to come to the point where there's a general resolution from the whole board, but that certainly would be a possibility. please encourage the 5 people who are on the Fair Park Committee to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Since there's no other business to come before, Supervisor Gulick.
Is it at all appropriate for me to respond to the public comment?
No,
Okay, thank you.
it's not up for discussion.
No worries, thank you.
Seeing no more business in front of the board, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
That's not true because you can give free.
Yeah, but he didn't sign up. He didn't sign up. Yep.
But, you know, you're entitled to get your 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he likes being a rabble rouser.
This kind of put how can I hear whatever, because I didn't get paid for last month. They're no longer